Coming up on One Season Wonder.
Did y'all see how that motherfucker was sitting at the table?
God.
The screenshot?
When he said you want to be a man, and I was like, holy shit, look at the man spread on that guy.
He's airing it out after an hour right now. That's what he was doing.
His legs were so spread out.
Like, what are you saying?
I was like, is this guy 10 feet tall? Like, what is the deal?
Don't know, but he was very proud of himself.
Yes, he was. His legs were wide open.
I fucked Denara and you, Daddy.
I didn't pay attention to this guy close enough, apparently.
I noticed it right away. Welcome to One Season Wonder. I'm Talon.
I'm Jameson.
And I'm Christopher.
Oh, did you do your IMDb lookup?
There wasn't much on this one.
Oh, okay.
I did look into it. I got more about a couple of the actors than anything.
Okay, then you're just gonna sprinkle those in.
Yeah, there's the one thing I saw that I thought was funny was that Jayne, whatever his name is in real life, as a souvenir of the show, he tried to take the head of the statue. Apparently they had to refilm it later, so he had to bring it back. And there's a line on the statue on some of the scenes if you look close enough. I thought that was funny, and I was like, that is something that I would 100% do. And then get caught by hey, we got to redo this, but where's the head?
Right. Today we are discussing Episode 7, Jaynestown. The episode starts with Kaylee and Simon just hanging out, talking about random stuff. Kaylee points out that she's never heard Simon cuss, and he insists that he does, just only when it's appropriate. Then Inara
Every moment is appropriate for cussing.
Right. Then Inara walks in, getting ready to head up to her shuttle because she has a client to meet on the planet or the moon that they're going to. As she's leaving, Kaylee looks up at her and says, "Have good sex," which makes Simon kind of give her this look like, really? That was inappropriate. And a little befuddled. Then there's this loud commotion from the infirmary. Simon looks around the corner and he sees that Jayne has absolutely trashed the place. Turns out he was looking for tape. Simon, he's running around cleaning up, and he says that he's like a trained ape, only without the training, which is what I actually, when he was saying it, he was like, "You're like a trained ape." And I said, "But without the training." And he said, "Without the training." And I said, "Yeah, I wrote this episode."
Which it did make no sense at all. He's taping a gun to himself.
Right.
Which I'm sure you're going to get to, but why would you?
Because he was trying to hide it.
How is he going to get
How
the gun
useful is
out?
it going to be if it's taped?
So,
Yeah.
rip that thing out of there.
Right.
Jayne is clearly stressed out with this moon that they're going to because he's been there before and he's made some enemies there. So his solution is to tape a gun to his stomach instead of just carrying it the normal way. And at first we're not understanding really why. And then Mal walks in, sees what's going on, and he's like, "What the heck are you doing?" And Jayne explains that he doesn't feel like he's welcome on that planet because of the shit he did the last time he was there. And Mal immediately shuts him down. He's like, "No guns. Canton doesn't allow them." Jayne argues that he doesn't want to go in empty-handed, but Mal's not having it. He's like, "Why are you arguing what's already been decided?" And then that was that. So Jayne reluctantly gives in, and he rips the tape, and he makes the face, because he's got a lot of chest and
I noticed
hair.
that. He's got a good bit of, shadow right there.
Yeah, and it's in one spot, but also it's down into his stomach, too. Although where he ripped, I don't feel like had a lot of hair, but I don't know. Serenity lands on the moon. I don't know if you noticed in this shot, when it landed, how tiny it looked. And I realized perspective, it was further out, but it wasn't that far out. But it looked tiny.
Well, my comment, because I'm trying to be that IMDb nerd, I was looking at where the location of filming for this, it's all just Fox Studios. There's nowhere they actually filmed. So maybe that's why it looks small, because it's just the
studio.
Superimposed it in some sort of CGI way.
Yeah, but didn't do a good job at
Did
it.
they have CGI back then?
Well, I'm just saying.
Well,
CGI,
I'm sure they had some type of
editing of some sort that allows them to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I doubt they had a big spaceship that they were pretending to land somewhere.
Right.
Oh, really?
As they descend, Wash lets Inara know that she can detach now since they're atmospheric, so she can head off to meet her client. And this I was confused by.
I was as well, because she's done it before when they're not.
Yeah, and last week in Mrs. Reynolds, when Mrs. Reynolds took the other ship, she just took off whenever.
Didn't give a shit.
So I don't know why that was important that they had to be atmospheric.
Dialogue filler.
I guess so.
Or maybe it's like a...
You're gonna lay some sciencey shit on us?
Yeah, let us know.
I don't know, maybe he's just saying we're close enough now. You want to go ahead and take off, it'll be easier for you to find your way there.
I guess, maybe.
Instead of while
He
we're...
said it that way. He said, we're atmospheric, like that mattered.
Yeah.
So once everyone steps off the ship, the smell hits them immediately. Apparently this moon stinks.
Which I don't really understand why. It's just mud.
I know.
It's mud. Like,
I know.
it's not like it's like manure. Yeah. It's mud.
What's in the mud?
I guess manure.
The mud did make some noise, though. It was very
There was like
groany.
bubbly.
Yeah.
But yeah, apparently it smells really bad. So Mal tells Zoe to stay with the ship, and Kaylee suggests they bring Simon along. Mal agrees, figuring Simon looks the part of a respectable businessman. He's got soft hands, dresses nice, and could probably pass for someone interested in trade. The main business on this moon is mud, specifically making clay. Simon's hesitant to go since that would mean leaving River behind, but Shepard reassures him that he'll watch her, no problem. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, we see Jayne, who has completely covered himself from head to toe in clothes, goggles, hats, the works, trying way too hard not to be recognized, although I feel like he's really... It would give him more attention than... less attention. So the crew heads down to the mud pits where they meet the foreman. Simon, playing his part, says he wants to buy some mud. Meanwhile, the foreman is just casually bragging about how the workers here are basically slaves and they barely get paid. And that's so that they can make it pass on that cheapness to the customer who's buying it. Savings, So they tell the foreman they'll walk around a bit and check things out before deciding whether to open an account. As they leave, Mel and Wash start questioning Jayne about the ridiculous outfit he's wearing. They say, it's been years since you've been here, so no one's going to recognize you. And just as they're saying this, they look up and boom, they come face to face with the statue of Jayne.
Did anyone else notice the statue doesn't have the goatee on?
It was hard. I thought it looked weird.
It doesn't look...
It didn't look quite like him, but maybe years ago he didn't have a goatee.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it was a statue of him with his name, too.
Yeah,
first and last name. Like, they know who he is.
Yeah. I wonder how they knew. I mean, unless he'd hung out prior to stealing all the money, but if you had just gone to the planet, taken the money and then left, how would they know who you are?
Yeah.
Well,
they must have hung out for
I
a while.
assume they have a news report of some sort.
I doubt they don't.
In the future?
On that moon? You think that guy's letting them watch the news? The magistrate lets them watch TV at all? They probably do it on televisions.
Okay, maybe.
Was there one in the bar? I don't remember seeing one in the bar.
There was not a TV in the bar.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen a TV.
Yeah, I don't know if they even have TVs or anything like that.
Yeah, who's watching TV when you're like flying through space and...
What else do you do?
That would suck.
Yeah, no TV.
I'd be living the best life.
Yeah, we know you would, but the rest of us would be like, fuck.
I would love to watch an episode of Firefly right now.
Damn, I can't watch Bones anymore.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, maybe they...
He had to have hung out there for a while before.
Yeah, he must have. So, just standing there in the middle of town, to just suddenly walk up on fake Jayne. So, they're all just standing there, completely dumbfounded. I asked Jayne why in the world there's a statue of him, and Jayne is just as confused as they all are. And they're all just literally in awe and shock, and Simon especially, because he says something along the lines of, this must be what going mad is like.
And he also cusses.
Well, at the end, yeah.
Way to skip ahead.
Spoiler alert! He does explain that he did steal a bunch of money from the magistrate here once, and that there was some chaos that involved. But none of that explains why they would build this statue of him. It makes no sense. Mm-hmm. So Jayne's still trying to wrap his head around it, but he decides it doesn't matter. They need to get in and out before they attract too much attention, because the magistrate of this town isn't exactly forgiving. Simon says, son of a... As soon as they see it, he says, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's when
nerds. I was paying attention.
Yeah.
I didn't jump ahead. You guys don't have your story in line.
Then we cut to Inara, who is meeting with the magistrate. Magistrate Higgins is her client.
That's who was in 24.
Oh, yeah. He was a dick.
He was a dick. Yeah, he was the president.
Yeah.
And he was like, he was not a good president. I do remember him being a dick, and in this episode, he's a dick.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's totally a dick. So she greets him professionally, saying, happy to meet you, Magistrate Higgins. And of course, because Rich Palfreman and the show are all just awful, he responds with, you don't have to call me by my title. I only make people I own call me that.
Yeah. It's nice.
Like, are these guys such dicks? Yeah. And the look on Inara's face, too. Yeah. After it, you could tell that she was, disgusted by it, but she, of course, kept her professionalness about it. So then we go back to the ship, where Zoe, Shepard, and River are. Shepard goes into the kitchen dining hall area. River's at the table and she's going through a book and she's writing in it and she's ripping out pages and she's doing all this stuff and she looks like she's thinking real hard. And Shepard's like, hey, what you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm fixing your book, the Bible. He's like, what? And so he rushes over there. She's like, it's broken. It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. I've got to fix this and do that so that it makes sense. She's going on about it. He gently explains to her that you don't fix faith. Faith fixes you. She doesn't quite get it, but she keeps going on.
Shocker.
Wanting
doesn't
to
get it.
Yeah. So she keeps going on, wanting to correct it anyway. Finally, he like, give it to me, and he tries to pull the papers from her. She ends up keeping them, and he's like, will you hold on to those? And so, meanwhile, back on the moon.
Before that, I didn't, and maybe it's because I don't remember and don't pay attention, I didn't know they were literally following Christianity. Because she mentions, like, Noah's Ark and stuff like that. I didn't know it was, like, that was the religion that he was doing.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I just figured that's what he was doing.
I just didn't, I wasn't clued into that.
So, meanwhile, back at the moon, or back down on the moon, the crew heads into a really cool underground bar.
Right.
Which I didn't realize was underground until a little later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they came
that place was dope.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I want an underground bar.
Especially
until there's like an earthquake.
Well, it might be, I don't know, underground it could be okay. Unless you're right on the fault line.
No.
Because underground, you've got all that dirt and stuff holding you tight.
Except for, like, the dirt on top that falls.
It falls on.
I guess since their thing is mud,
I mean,
maybe they use the mud to help structure.
Well, I mean, inside that one, it looks like it's all probably just dirt. But if you made it where you've got concrete, cement, or whatever, and something, and it was maybe rounded, then the dirt that's on top of it, if there were an earthquake, you'd be fine.
Yeah.
We'll have to ask some.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Because I would be concerned.
Leave your comments below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jayne is still trying to process the insanity of the whole statue thing. He's telling the crew that none of it makes sense. He didn't do anything good, so why in the world would they be worshiping him, basically? They shift the conversation to Mutter's Milk, which is a drink that they have there, and it's basically a liquid nutrition. It's
with alcohol.
With alcohol. Full of vitamins, protein, and a ridiculous amount of alcohol, apparently. Like 15% or something, I can't already say. So basically it's beer that doubles as a meal replacement.
Yep.
Then this fancy-looking guy, he strolls into the bar, and at the same time, there's this little kid in the bar who keeps staring at Jayne all like, oh. And Jayne barks at him to get. It's like, get.
Get.
Don't get.
And the kid jumps and takes off running. Meanwhile, the fancy guy walks up to their table and asks if they are looking for Kessler. Mal, of course, doesn't know this guy, so he plays dumb, and he says he has no idea who that is. Like, who's Kessler? The guy, he's not buying it. He's like, I knew a man named Kessler, and Mal picks up on the past tense of knew. And so he's like, what do you mean knew? So it turns out that Kessler was caught hustling contraband by the foreman. The foreman found out. And because this town is horrible, they cut off his hands and feet and threw him into the bog. And so naturally Mal is now very concerned about their cargo, and he wants to know if it's still there. The guy assures him it is, still hidden wherever Kessler had stashed it. The guy knows. But now the tricky part is trying to figure out how to get that cargo, move it across town and onto their ship without attracting attention. So for now, the guy suggests that they lay low while they figure it out. Then out of nowhere, the bar's entertainer, a guy with a guitar that's singing, starts singing, and the first words out of his mouth are Jayne. And everybody's like, what? And then it becomes very clear that this entire song is about Jayne. And the crew sits there, they're completely baffled. Even Jayne is baffled. The song tells the legend of what happened, how Jayne stole from the rich and gave to the poor, and how he took on the magistrate and gave him what for. Fun
fact with that. Apparently they took a lot of the Ballad of Jesse James song for Jayne's song.
Yeah, because when I was listening to it, it sounded familiar. The music sounded
I'd
familiar.
never seen that. I just read it, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, if you heard it, the song, you would be like, oh yeah, that's it.
Right.
So I knew it came from somewhere. Yeah. If you listen to it, try to remember when you leave here, listen to it. You'll be like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. I bet you have. So the hero of Canton, the man they call Jayne. So Jayne is sitting there and slowly realizing what is going on, like why they're thinking that he was this big hero. And he basically lays out that he stole the money from the magistrate. He stole the hovercraft, and while he was getting away, it got hit with artillery, and he was, shoving stuff out, and the money fell out, and he was like, it was $60 million, but he said it dumped all over top of the middle of Mutter Central, where all the workers were. So they, of course, think, oh, this guy just gave us this shit ton of money. And he's like, fuck. So
they could have bought a TV with it.
Yeah, they could have bought a TV or started a TV station that they probably don't have. So from their perspective, the money just fell out of the sky like a gift from their savior, Jayne Cobb. And now, years later, they still believe he did it for them. Back on Serenity, Shepard is in his room. He's, I guess, getting ready for the night. He takes his hair down, bends over his sink, and he's splashing water and washing his face. And as he's doing that, River suddenly appears, and she's holding his papers from his Bible. And she tells him that she took these from his symbol, and they turned into paper. Ding dong.
I love it.
Right, and now she wants to return them. So then Shepard, he's been washing his face, he's not thinking about it. This is normal time for him. He stands up, and when he stands up, his hair is insane. It's Einstein level crazy. Like it literally had that Einstein look going on. And River completely freaks out. She screams, she throws the papers, and she just bolts. She's gone. So as she runs off, Zoe happens to walk around the corner, and seeing River take off in a panic, she immediately shouts, "Preacher, what in the world did you do?" And then he pops his head out. Of course, his hair is all crazy. And she's like, whoa.
Right.
Do you want something?
Oh, have you seen that new meme with like the dude in the rock band, the singer?
Yes.
That's what it looks like.
It does, but I haven't seen that, no.
It's funny.
Yeah.
But it's like a cover band kind of.
Yeah, it's probably like a cover band, just like a little band. But the lead singer is this old guy, and he's holding the microphone. And he's like,
but his hair is like,
exactly blowing in a fan, and it's like the same way. And it's just ridiculous. Yeah,
that's what it made me think of.
Oh, okay. So back at the bar, the song finally ends, and the crew agrees it's time to get the hell out of there. Mal is all for it. Jayne's all for it. Everybody's like, let's get out of here. So they head to leave, and then they step outside, and this is when I fully realized the bar was underground, because they came out this little door, and I was like, wait, what is that? It's almost like
because it's just like a little
like trolls live down there or something.
Yeah.
But when they walk out, there's a huge crowd of mutters all standing there with that little kid, because the kid obviously ran and told everybody, "Oh my god, I think Jayne Cobb is at the bar." Now the entire town is there, and they all explode into cheers, and they're all shouting, "Jayne, Jayne, Jayne, Jayne." So Jayne is like, "What the fuck?" And he turns around and right back into the bar.
Which was an awful decision, because it's underground with nowhere to go.
Right.
So I thought that, and I was like, that was an error on your part. Like, you have nowhere to go.
Yeah, all these people can come in here and just be stuck around them.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they weren't going to hurt him, but still. Once he's back in the bar, he marches over to the bartender and orders a thing of Mutter's milk. As he's drinking it, this other young guy, he's sitting nearby, standing there, and he's like, "Don't you understand? That's Jayne. He's come back." And the bartender immediately smacks the mug right out of Jayne's hand. He's like, "What the heck was that for?" And he says, "A hero like you shouldn't be drinking that, and nothing but the finest vodka for you."
Whiskey.
Oh, was it whiskey?
It was whiskey.
Oh, okay. I thought it was vodka.
I pay attention to these things.
These things that you remember. So, meanwhile, Mal comes back inside, and that fancy guy, that fancy guy from earlier stops him, and he's like, "What the hell is going on?" He's like, "This is how people from where you are from lay low."
Right.
You've got all these people like, it's
all over the place now.
Yeah, so this guy's a little stressed out about it now that Jayne is the center of attention, and how he's supposed to sneak out this cargo. So Mal, completely unfazed, assures him, "It's fine. This is all part of our plan," except he totally doesn't have a plan.
Right.
He's just letting this guy know that this is the plan. So then we cut back to Inara on her shuttle. She's getting everything ready for her client, and then Magistrate Higgins walks in, and he's got his son with him. Turns out the magistrate has hired Inara to take his son's virginity. The son, who I think was like 26.
Yeah. He looked like a nerd.
Yeah, he looks embarrassed. He seems obviously uncomfortable.
Yeah.
While his father is all business about it. He notices that Inara has a tea set out and instantly gets annoyed.
Such an asshole.
I didn't hire you to do a tea party.
Yeah.
I hired you to fuck my son.
Right, exactly. That's basically what I have, right? So Inara, being infinitely more patient than this guy deserves, politely explains that she has her own way of doing things. She also makes it very clear this is supposed to be a private session. It's very sacred, meaning that Higgins needs to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
For some weird reason, he seems like he wants to hang out for it. I was like, what are you doing, dude? Just get the fuck out. So Inara, without, breaking a sweat, she just firmly pushes his ass right out the door. She's like, you have to go. So back at the bar, Jayne is still riding high of being a folk hero. He's getting very much used to it. Then we cut over to Simon and Kaylee, who are sitting there on this bench. Simon, they're both drunk, but Simon's really drunk and rambling about his past accomplishments and how he saved hundreds of lives. He reattached a girl's leg, and she was so grateful that she named her hamster after him. And he was like, so I have a hamster named after me. And Jayne drops some money and gets a whole town. Kaylee's amused, tells him that he's pretty funny when he's drunk, and then Simon, without thinking, blurts out that she's pretty. And it was a little weird. I thought it was a little awkward, but of course she's delighted with it. Yeah. And at least it's not his sister. So that's happy about
God bless. Well, it annoys me because I don't fucking like Simon.
Right.
And so for Kaylee to be all,
right.
Kaylee could do way, but dump Simon.
I don't know. Like, Mal and Inara have some fucking hot chemistry. Yeah. They totally have some good chemistry going on.
But those two.
Kaylee and Simon, I don't feel have any chemistry.
Because I don't think they're just not meant to be together.
I can see Kaylee and Jayne together before I can see Kaylee and Simon together.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no chemistry there.
No. And also from the fact, too, that, Kaylee has, swoon over him for so long, but yet he keeps disappointing her, time and time again. And it's like, girl.
Because up until now, it almost seemed like he didn't even think of her that way.
Right.
It didn't seem like there was any kind of tension in any way whatsoever with them. Except for from her side.
Right.
From his side. Now, of course, he's, got his sister. He's juggling around town on the ship all the time. But still.
Juggling his sister, all right.
Yeah. Still, there's just no... there's nothing there that makes it seem like they should be together. Yeah. Outside of the fact that he's another guy on the ship that she could be with. Right. Yeah. Mal comes over. He wants to get going. And thinks it's time to go. And she looks up at him and she's like, but things are going so well. And he's like, yeah, I guess for Jayne, they are going pretty well, but we need to go. No. And she's like, no, they're going so well. And she kind of looks at, side-eyes Simon. Mm-hmm. And Mal's like, oh, okay. Yeah, you guys just stay here and keep an eye on the hero, and I'll head back to Serenity with Wash. So he leaves. So back on Serenity, River has wedged herself into a tiny hiding spot in the cargo bay, pretty much where they kept the chocolate gold bars or whatever.
Fucking usual.
Yeah. And she's refusing to come out. Shepard and Zoe are standing there trying to reason with her. Shepard very gently is like, River, why don't you come out? And River's like, no, too much hair. Mm-hmm. And he's like, really? That's it? And Zoe says, well, if I didn't have anything better to do, I'd probably be in there with her. Because it was crazy, because his hair was still all crazy now. So Shepard tries to explain that the hair thing is a tradition of his order. And she's always like, no, she's not going to hear any of that. Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
So he's like, he's putting the hair away now. And Shepard sighs and he ties his hair back. But then River says it doesn't matter, it'll still be there. Like he's going to shave his head. Cuts back to Mal and Wash, who just arrived back on the ship. So he tells them that the buyer is getting very impatient. He wants the cargo now. Meanwhile, Wash, who is obviously drunk, still not over the fact that Jayne is this legend and this hero. He's telling her about it. And she's like, yeah, dude, you're drunk. And Mal's like, he is drunk, but it's still true. He starts to let her in on the plan, what they're going to do. And they've convinced a couple of people in town to hold a Jayne Day celebration in his honor. And while that's happening, they'll use that as a distraction to sneak in through town, grab the cargo, and then get it back to the ship, hopefully unnoticed.
Which I was a little bit confused at that point. I'm assuming the workers and the foreman dude, they're different, because it's the foreman's job to be on the lookout for this stuff. I guess the foreman works more for the magistrate dude.
Oh, yeah, he works for the magistrate. Absolutely.
Okay, even though he's still a mutter dude, he's
he's a little higher up. He probably has some perks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But that's where I got confused. I was like, why are they trying to distract all them when they're okay.
He's
because he's the one that
the service manager. Yeah. And the magistrate is the general manager.
Got it.
Right. And he's the one that turned Kessler in to the magistrate for the contraband that he was trying to move around.
Right.
And got him killed.
Yep.
So we cut back to Inara and the magistrate's son. His name is Fess, and he's visibly embarrassed about the situation. He tells Inara that, kind of feeling awkward and weird.
He must confess.
Right. His father won't stop pushing him about it. Inara calms him and reassures him and tells him there's nothing embarrassing about being a virgin. It's just another state of being. She goes on to explain that companions are very selective about their clients. If his father had requested her, she never would have accepted.
Yeah.
But because it was him, she chose to be there. And he was like, really? And she's like, yes. And she takes off his glasses and they start kissing. And then I'm assuming it just goes right into the bed. At the bar, Jayne is sitting there with that young mutter who from before. And he explains what happened after Jayne's so-called heroic act. And turns out that after Jayne dropped the money, the magistrate wanted to take the money back. The mutters all stood their ground. They refused to give it up. Eventually, the magistrate backed off and let them keep it, calling it a bonus. Then, when they built the statue of Jayne, the magistrate tried to tear that down, but once again, the mutters fought back, and this time they rioted to protect it. So then Jayne gets all weepy-ish, kind of, he's very emotional about all this, and he's like, oh my god, you guys had a riot for me? And he's like hugging them all and everything, because you know how he is when he's drunk, he's a happy drunk. Meanwhile, over at the magistrate's compound, the foreman rushes in with some urgent news, telling him that Jayne Cobb is back in town. So the magistrate, of course, is not happy about this, but he has an idea. So they head down to the bog, where they have these square, very small boxes on stilts or whatever, and this is where they keep their prisoners, which I hope they let them out a little bit, because they must let him out some, because that guy, if he had gotten out of that, and he'd been all up in there all that for 4 years, I don't know how he would have been able to walk.
So that was on the IMDb thing.
Oh.
About, like, how that was not realistic. They had to have, like, not kept him in that box the whole time.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, they keep him there at night and whatever, but they must let him out and walk. And
they got some rec time
during the day.
Rec time
Yeah.
somewhere.
Maybe they put him to work.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they're all slaves, basically. So they open one of them, and there's this guy in there named Stitch Hitchens. It sounds like it said Hitchens, but it's spelled different.
Yeah, it's spelled funky.
Yeah. It's like Hessein or something.
I read Hassan, but
that's what it
not
looks
what
like.
they said.
It sounds like it says Hitchens. I didn't realize it was different until I saw it on your TV with the
Closed captioning.
subtitles. Yeah. And he, pops his head out, and he's got all this long, crazy hair. His face is all fucked up. He's missing an eye. He's looking real rough. He's been in there for 4 years. Well, the magistrate hands him his belongings, which included a gun, and tells him that he's done his time, he can go, but also wants to let him know that the guy that fucked you over is in town, and that's because he's like, you gave me a gun that's loaded, and after having me locked up for 4 years, he's like, well, just to let you know, in case you want to get revenge. Like, they not subtly told him, go kill Jayne Cobb.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course he has reason to, because Jayne totally screwed him over. So of course the magistrate is counting on Stitch's thirst for revenge to take care of the Jayne problem that he has.
Right.
So the next morning, Kaylee and Simon, who are passed out on the same bench, and Kaylee's like laying on top of him, where Mal had left the night before. Mal walks in, Kaylee wakes up first, then Simon stirs and he wakes up, and immediately he's kind of panicked about the awkwardness of the situation. And he starts rambling and trying to explain himself to Mal. It's like, nothing happened, I would never do anything, especially not with Kaylee. And then Kaylee immediately snaps and is like, what do you mean not with me? And Mal, who doesn't give a shit about any of this at all.
Yeah.
He just wants to know, where's Jayne? So, and then right as he asks where he is, Jayne stumbles out from some back room with some lady, and he's very happy with himself and satisfied with whatever is going on. And he's singing his hero song, but he's, instead of saying a man called Jayne, he's like, a man called me, and he's going on. He's fresh off this night with some lady, and he wants some eggs or maybe some more milk, but Mal shuts that down and tells him, nope, none for you.
Oh, this was the moment. This scene happened, and I looked at Christopher and I was like, wow, this is you. Because he's like, I want eggs and milk. And I'm like, wow, no wonder you like him so much. It sounds just like you.
You want milk at some time other than 2 o'clock in the morning?
Dude, that motherfucker just loves milk, and he's been so obsessed with eggs recently.
Yeah. But yeah, when it said like,
but he literally said milk and eggs, and I was like, wow, you guys are the same fucking person. That's ridiculous.
It's not a bad idea.
I forgot about that scene because I was like, that's fucking ridiculous.
He tells, Mal shuts it down. He says, nope, none of that for you. You've got an appearance to make. So he reminds Jayne that today is his big day. It's Jayne Day. And the 4 of them start to get ready to leave. Well, 3 of them do. Jayne, Mal, and Kaylee are getting ready to go. And Simon, of course, grabs his jacket because he's going to go along with them. Why wouldn't he, right? And she looks at him, Kaylee does, and she's like, where do you think you're going? And he's like, with you? Kaylee is not having it. And she's still mad about the comment from before. Yeah. And she says, no, I don't think so. I think it's time for a civilized person to sit down and have a civilized breakfast. And because that would be the appropriate thing to do. So she's obviously still mad about the not with Kaylee comment. So they head out. Then you go back to Inara's shuttle where Fess and Inara are post session, and he's
well said.
And he's processing, everything. They're laying there. He's kind of processing everything, and he admits that he thought he'd feel different, like this was supposed to make him feel like a man. And Inara tells him she's kind of got that way of speaking sometimes, like a almost philosophical teacher kind of way.
A little bit cheesy, in my opinion. On this
sometimes it's a little eh.
It's a boy that can ask the question.
That was the one line that I just thought, oh, we didn't have to say that one. That one's just dumb. I didn't like that line.
But whatever works for you, bud.
So she tells him that isn't how it works. You do that yourself. You decide, if you're going to be a man, you're going to act like a man. You're the one that decides that.
Right.
So before they can continue, though, there's a loud banging on the door. His father's back, and he is being very impatient. Meanwhile, back in town, Mal is going over the plan with Jayne, who's starting to feel a little weird about the whole thing because he doesn't like the idea of using the Mutter's loyalty just to pull off a job. He's feeling sentimental and a little bit guilty about it. Mal reassures him, but Jayne's still not sure. At the same time, Wash and Zoe and Kaylee roll up on the ATV. Of course, Zoe's like, oh my God, is that Jayne? Is that the real Jayne Cobb? Pinch me, Wash.
Yeah.
So she's kind of making fun of him. So they all get on, well, except for Jayne, as Mal tells him to go to the town for the celebration while the rest of them head out to retrieve the cargo. They drive over to where Kessler has the stash, and they find it. They load it on the ATV. They head back into town. Now all I have to do is make it back to the ship unnoticed while the town is distracted by Jayne's big hero moment. We're back on Inara's shuttle. Fess is still there, and his father has come and gone. But now he's telling Inara about why his dad
is so upset.
Is
just like that.
Yeah. So apparently there's going to be some sort of public trial. She asks what it's about, and he starts explaining a story from his childhood about a man who came into town, stole a bunch of money from his father, and then when he made his getaway, he dropped the money over the Mutters in town. And now they all think he's a hero. And this guy seems to also like him too, even though he did this to his dad. So Inara, who is assuming, because the guy said, that he touched down yesterday on our moon, and she's like, oh. So she's assuming it's Mal. So she starts saying, well, Mal's, he has this weird thing where he's really noble, but he thinks he's a bad guy, but he's really not. And she's kind of going on in that, obviously, she loves him kind of way.
Right.
So she's trying to, defend him. She says, sometimes he just likes to do the right thing. And then Fess interrupts her. He's like, wait, you actually know Jayne? And Inara's like, Jayne Cobb? She's like her whole face. She's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He did this? So Fess is kind of excited about it. And he kind of admires Jayne because he's the only man who stood up to his father, basically. But then he drops the real problem. The problem is that his father put a landlock on the Serenity. I wonder how that works.
There's a bunch of technical stuff that they don't explain. It's just it's just how it works. You can't take off with a landlock.
Yeah, what? How does that work?
Magnets.
I guess there's some all over under the land. They just happen to. I don't know how that works.
You figure a computer virus thing,
I guess maybe, yeah. So that means that when Jayne and the crew try to leave, they won't be able to. So back at the go ahead.
I'm sorry. It reminds me. Do you remember that movie Galaxy Quest? We talked about it before, I think, didn't we?
I was gonna say.
But this is probably a different part. But
did you say Tourette's?
I said twice.
Oh. Have we talked about it twice? It's a great movie, but
obviously love it.
It was a really good movie. Part of that movie was that the nerds that do cosplay and whatever over, they fantasize and hypothesize how things work, and that just reminds me of it. What is a lock?
Oh,
well, a landlock is the magnets in the computer virus and
We go back to the bar. Simon is still there, finishing up his breakfast, and he's getting ready to get going. But before he can leave, trouble shows up. It's old Stitch.
Stitch has on.
Stitch. Hitchens.
It reminds me of something. I can't think of what it is. Every time you say
Stitch Hitchens? Or just Stitch? Like Lilo and Stitch? he's there. He's getting ready to leave. The guy, Stitch, comes in. He's like, I hear you run with Jayne Cobb and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm not sure. And the guy, grabs him. And of course.
And punched in the face.
Punched in the face.
As soon as he got punched in the face, I was like, there it is.
Yep, no doubt.
Punched in the face
Punched
again.
in the face. If he gets punched in every episode, they're doing that on purpose.
Oh, 100%. But his face never looks different.
Yeah, well, he did have some. He had the.
Oh, yeah, he
things
did.
to add on
Yeah,
that one.
Band-Aid.
Yeah.
That'll be gone next episode.
Right, yeah. Bullet next episode.
Gone.
True.
Yeah.
Good point.
So, little knock on the face, no big deal.
Right.
Yeah, he gets punched, of course. So, they have a struggle and then pulls out a knife and Simon grabs something and hits him over the head with it. It doesn't seem to faze him. The guy slices his arm with the knife.
Which they don't address.
No, I guess it's, it was probably minimal maybe. It wasn't, I guess it wasn't a big...
It was a
Oh, yeah.
knife.
Right down his arm, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He gets ready to drag Simon outside, but then of course they hear the crowd chanting Jayne's name. Meanwhile, the rest of the crew has successfully delivered the cargo to the ship. They got through all the townspeople and around. Mal is thinking everything is going according to plan, and while everybody's doing stuff at the ship, he and Kaylee go back to gather the other two so they can get out of there. So back at the town square, Jayne is standing up by a statue, and he's kind of soaking it all in. The Mutters want a speech, so Jayne's still feeling weirdly emotional, and by this time Kaylee and Mal are there. Tells them that they really got the short end of the stick on this moon, but at least they took it. And
Great speech.
Made something of it. The Mutters go wild. Even Kaylee's a little bit impressed and Mal by the how relatively good the speech was considering it's Jayne. So everybody's, yay! And then all of a sudden this gunshot goes off in the back of the crowd. So the crowd completely parts. And there's Jayne and Stitch directly across from each other. And Jayne sees him and immediately recognizes him. He's like, Stitch Hitchens.
And I found it funny because at that moment I was like, Jayne was right. He should have had a fucking gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so too.
And it made me wonder, what do they do with someone with a gun?
I guess they take the gun.
They can't. He has a gun.
Oh, sure, they all have guns.
Who?
The higher up people.
Higher up people have guns.
There's no guns allowed. That's what
they
they
can
say.
have guns, I guarantee it.
I didn't see any guns.
Well, it's because you didn't see it as we weren't there. But yeah, they're absolutely going to have guns. So it wouldn't make sense for them not to have guns. He's got Simon, and he tells Jayne that I thought I'd make you watch while I cut up one of your boys. And then Jayne's like, he's not one of my boys. Then
And he talks super southern, I noticed. And,
Yeah.
For some reason.
Jayne,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, just the dialogue. He ain't one mine. Something
Yeah.
like
Ain't
that.
woman.
Like,
Yeah.
it was very southern sounding.
yeah. They kind of like, even Kaylee would like, she says ain't a lot, which sounds really forced for some reason when she says it, but it almost has that country,
I wonder where she's from.
that back, well, it's written that way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying, like, if she's from, like,
her
New Hampshire, she
her
might not say
character?
ain't too often.
But it just has that real backwoodsy southern sound to
Yeah.
it.
Well, Western and,
Yeah, right.
Western in space.
Yeah. Stitch starts explaining what really happened to all the townspeople.
So that they,
Yeah, so they like, this is your hero. And basically what happened was everything went off without a hitch. And almost without a stitch.
Tagline for the episode right there.
So they go in, they steal the money from the magistrate, they steal one of his hovercrafts, they take off. It seems like a good, clean getaway, but then artillery fire hits them. They start to lose altitude, so they start throwing shit off. They reserve fuels, the seats. Then Jayne throws him out, and when he throws him out, he also accidentally throws all the money out as well. And that's really what happened.
Oh.
Go ahead.
No,
Go
after
ahead.
you.
Mine's not relevant,
I
really.
might forget.
Exactly. So go
Yeah,
ahead.
you go ahead. For real.
Please.
I would have liked to have seen like a cutback scene.
Showing it happening.
Yeah, like where
Yeah.
it actually happened. Like
Right.
that would have been cool to me.
Yeah.
That
Just
would've
a
been
quick
nice.
little,
Yeah.
Like instead of the verbal telling the story, like we
Right.
see some flashbacks of it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that would have been cool.
Jane's like, are you going to just talk me to death? Is that your plan? Like, what are you doing? And so the guy's like, I'll show you my plan. And he pulls his big old gun out. And when he shoots the gun, the young kid that idolized Jayne from earlier, the young guy, not the little kid,
Yeah.
that he was talking to in the bar, he jumps in front of Jayne and takes the bullet. of course, then Jayne whips out his knife and gets a guy right in the middle of the chest. The guy's still going. They get into a bit of a brawl until the guy falls down. Jayne beats his head against the ground.
And it's brutal.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
pretty
a little
gnarly
overkill.
way to die.
Right.
Yeah.
Jayne looks over at the guy and he's upset and he's like, "Why did you do that? Why did you jump in front of me?" And
I think that is the first. No, that's not true. It was just interesting to see it was a dead body with his eyes open. It was a little bit more
right.
than the usual stuff we've seen with this show.
And he says, "Why did you do that? Why did you do that? That was stupid. You just got yourself killed for no reason, basically." And then he turns to everybody else and he says, "Do you really think anybody's just going to drop money on you? Money they can use? He says, there ain't nobody like that, and it's not me." And then the little boy that he saw in the bar earlier had gone over and he pulled the knife out of the guy and handed it to Jayne. And Jayne grabbed it. And then he's looking at the people, but then he turns around, goes up to his statue, and he pushes it and knocks the statue down. So then the four of them head back to the ship. Mal lets Wash know that they're back on to go ahead and get off this mud ball. And Wash says, "Yeah, I'm working on it," because they still have that landlock on the ship. So you see Wash up there and he's flustered and he's trying to do all this stuff. And then Inara comes in and asks if there's a problem with takeoff. And he's like, no, it's fine. But basically it's a problem. And he's hitting buttons and doing all this stuff. And then all of a sudden there's a ding and the landlock is released. And he's like, "Oh, no, we're fine." And Inara kind of gets this little smirk on her face because she knows what happened. So then it cuts to, you see Jayne for a second.
Oh, no, that's not the part.
Oh, no, wait a minute. Sorry. Yeah, the father.
Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah.
I got some shit to talk about.
Yeah. So it cuts back to where the dad, the son is sitting in the magistrate's house in a chair, and the dad's up beside him. He's like, "How could you do that? Why would you do that?" And he's like, "Well, didn't you want me to be a man? And so I made a manly decision, and I went and told them to lift the landlock." And the dad's fuming and pissed off, but he made his own monster.
So that shit tickled me for numerous reasons. Number one, the son had no motivation other than just to fuck up his father.
Right. Yeah.
And go completely against what you're saying.
Although he did like Jayne.
He did like Jayne.
He liked Jayne, I reckon. But he was just "Fuck you, Dad.
Right.
I'm gonna do what I want now."
But also Inara was
Inara might have had a hand in
influenced it,
That's
obviously.
probably true.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Did y'all see how that motherfucker was sitting at the table?
God.
The screenshot.
When he said you want to be a man, and I was like, "Holy shit! Look at the man spread on that guy."
He's airing it out after Inara right now. That's what he was doing.
His legs were so spread out.
What are you
I was like,
saying
"Is this guy
that
10 feet
for?
tall? What is the deal?"
Still no, but he was very proud of himself.
Yes, he was. His legs were wide open.
I fucked Inara and you, Daddy.
I didn't pay attention to this guy close enough,
I
apparently.
noticed it right away.
It
It's a shot
was weird.
Because
you
it's
see
low.
him.
Yeah.
There's a table, and then under the table, and his legs are just spread so far out.
Didn't make any sense.
He's feeling like a man now.
Oh, he was proud of
yeah,
himself.
he's got to sit like a man.
So
He's got these
That's how I
big
sit.
old balls now.
every time I close the deal, I'm like, "Where's my steak and eggs, babe?"
Oh,
So
God.
then we're back to the ship, and it shows Jayne for just a brief moment. He's you can tell he's still bothered. He's looking at the knife, and he's kind of bothered about what's going on. But then it cuts to Kaylee and Simon, and she's, telling him, "You need to be a little more steely." She's like, "You're not weak. You should, fight back.
Stop letting these
guys.
men beat you up.
Stop letting these men beat you up all the time." Thank God somebody's noticed. She's like, unless, of course, that's not proper. Well, she says something about their relationship and how weird it is. "You like me enough, and we get along well enough, but you just always go stiff." And I'm thinking, isn't that
what you want?
Dude, I'm glad we're all three on the same page. So I was like, "Well, then, what are you doing about it, Kaylee?"
What are you complaining about?
Right.
So then he's kind of tripping over his words, and she's like, "See, there you go, I'm doing it again." And he says, "Well, me being proper, all I know, and that is how I treat you because I do like you and I respect you, so I'm trying to be proper."
Yeah.
Mm.
So then it goes back to Mal and Jayne is talking about how he doesn't understand why the Mutter kid threw himself in front of the bullet, that none of these people probably even understand what happened out there, and that they're probably re-erecting the statue again. And Mal says, "Yeah, they probably are." And then Jayne says, I don't know why it bothers me so much. And Mal tells him that it's not about you, Jayne. It's about what they need. And that's the end.
Yeah. And they got into that real Southern dialect with that kind of thing, too.
Right.
You also missed the part where Kaylee picked fun at Simon about having sex with him. And he was like, we what?
Yeah. Because she was like, oh, so we made love last night. And he's like, we made what? She's like, oh, you're such an easy target.
Yeah.
Tune in next week for my next comment about Galaxy Quest.
All right, so that is it for this episode of One Season Wonder. Thanks for joining us as we dive into the short-lived but unforgettable world of one-season TV. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube for updates and extra content. Next time, we'll be covering Out of Gas, so be sure to watch ahead and join us for the discussion. And as always, keep watching so we don't become a one-season wonder ourselves. See ya!